He's a husband, a father of two, who knows that time with his family is running out.
Jason Liversidge from East Yorkshire has motor neurone disease, which in the 4 years since he was diagnosed has severely affected his mobility, his speech, every aspect of his life.
He's decided to share his story on a new website set up by Sheffield University, which was launched today in the hope of helping others. Michael Billington reports.
I can't believe how well you're walking there. It's only really.
I wouldn't say well was the right word.
Well, maybe not well, but...
His family life was as busy as any young father when in 2013 Jason Liversidge was told he had motor neurone disease.
You usually have about 2 to 5 years to live. Half of the people diagnosed die within 14 months of diagnosis, so it really is a devastating disease.
Since last year, when this video was filmed, his walking has deteriorated. And while still able to speak, he also now uses a speech box to communicate.
Having this device is a great relief to me. I feel a lot safer and less afraid of what is ahead, knowing I have a way of communicating in the future.
But one of his greatest challenges has been eating, his muscle wasting disease affecting his ability to swallow food.
I was near a skeleton before. It was I wasn't taking on enough calories.
He took the difficult decision to have a feeding tube fitted directly into his stomach.
What we used it for was supplement what I was eating, and within 6 months I put on 2.5 stone.
We would like to welcome you to the launch of MyTube, an online education resource about tube feeding in motor neurone disease.
In Sheffield this afternoon, Jason shared his story as a new website launched to give support to other families living with motor neurone disease.
A resource like MyTube is really beneficial to hear from other patients about how they've coped with having a feeding tube, or how they've come to that decision to have a feeding tube fitted in the first place.
It's hoped the videos will help reassure others facing that decision. But Jason and Liz know they could also give some comfort to their daughters in the future.
Inevitably, unfortunately, Jason is going to succumb to the disease at some point. You know, the girls might not be old enough to remember him, so it's really important to have live footage of Jason and footage of his voice and footage of him doing things with the girls.
Jason's wife Liz there, ending that report by Michael Billington. A little earlier, I spoke to Professor Chris McDermott from the Sheffield Institute of Translational Neuroscience, who's behind the website mentioned there in Michael's report. I started by asking him what research had uncovered about the provision of feeding tubes and whether patients were being given the medical help they needed.
What we found with work that we've led within the country was that patients were not getting the tubes when they needed to, and in fact they were getting them quite late, which made the procedure more risky and also meant they were getting less benefit from it. And when we looked into why this was happening, it was because patients didn't have the understanding, it wasn't being communicated to them well by healthcare professionals about why it was so important. So we decided to turn to people living with the condition and ask them to translate the findings of our research and integrate it with their lived experience, as I think there's no one better to communicate to people who need these tubes than people who are actually living with them already.
It's very powerful, the reportage that is there from the patients themselves, and it really does share their experiences.
Yes, it does. It shares their experiences of the decision-making process that they went through. It shares their experiences of what it's actually like to have the tube fitted, and then what it's like to live with the tube. And these are all questions that people have when a healthcare professional first brings up the idea that they might need a feeding tube.
We obviously, you know, this is a very important day for yourselves and launching the website, but of course the research does go on in such detail that hopefully one day we'll find a cure.
Yes, that's what we hope. So we're trying to do our best for the patients living with this condition now, and we must never forget them. But there is much work going on to understand the underlying causes of motor neuron disease and develop better treatments. And I think we are optimistic. There have been some huge advances in our understanding in the last few years. So hopefully there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Professor McDermott, we've got to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.